I remember days they used to laugh at me. Used to show them on my records talking casually. Used to say it was a passion on my path to be. Then they told me that I couldn't, so I had to be. Tell me what they really think about it now. Used to hate it, but I guarantee they're proud. Had to do it just to show them that I could, yeah. Now I finally think I took it where I should, yeah. Had a jokes on you and now you're on and laughing. I did a whole lot of winning. Look, it came from a passion. I see a whole lot of knowings I could see now in public. And that may think a lot of things, man. At least think something, now you the judge. And now tell me where you ended up, yeah. Look, I bet it was a simple job, yeah. Look, I went and took a different route, yeah. Look, that's why my life is different now. Back in my feelings, look, when I wasn't so gifted and I was learning to do this, and all I heard were the critics, and I don't blame you for that shit. Look, I was way out the basis, but I just needed some talent so I could wait this to greatness, oh yeah. You ain't ever think this, no, no, no. Stop me while I started, homie, whoa, whoa, whoa. Now this shit settled, it's go better and better, but I'll always remember, yeah, yeah.
Welcome back to That1 Podcast. We're at the home studio today, and I have Lyn Hammer with us. I appreciate all of you coming in and watching or listening, however you're consuming the That1 Podcast. Your boy C-Roc. I have Kins with me most of the time. She's not here, obviously, today at the home office studio, but we will be doing another location on the tour, That1 tour that we've been doing. The last one we did was Miami. We went to a mansion in Miami, and there was an event and during F1, and we interviewed some amazing people there. Brought them into our community, That1 community, and we're seeing amazing things happening all around with the brand That1. But today, we're going to focus on Lyn Hammer and what she's done in the past and what she's doing currently now and what her vision is. That's the trajectory of this conversation that we're going to have today with her. Lyn, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here, Mike.
Well, I'm glad to have you here because we connected a while back. And then, you decided to, collab with us here at That1, and I really appreciate the opportunity to work with you. I don't know if I told you this, but I love attaching myself to other people's missions because I don't have to be an expert in all these areas, but I can still help impact the world through them and move them further, faster. So it's a pleasure to be able to do that with you. So let's get started. First of all, it is Lyme Awareness Month, and I didn't know that until you told me. So... can you kind of speak to how you got involved with Lyme and doing things to help people that have contracted the disease?
Sure. Well, I didn't get in by choice. I was bit by a tick in 2000, but I didn't know it. And I was at a conference in Hilton Head. And 4 months later, I still had a hole in my leg. And I remember emailing a friend and saying, "What's up with this? Like, the bugs in Hilton Head are crazy." And
wait a minute, you didn't even know what kind of bug bit you? You just knew you had a bug bite?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we had an outside reception and we were getting eaten alive by no-see-ums, but I didn't know what else bit me. And I'm from Montana, so when you have a tick in Montana, they're sticking out of you. Like, it's obvious. But the ones on the East Coast are more like little spiders. And so I didn't realize what had happened. And I got bit the same month I got pregnant. So the pregnancy masked all of the symptoms that would have normally been identified as something going wrong. They're like, "Well, were you nauseous?" Well, yeah, it was my first trimester.
Did you crave pickles and chocolate at the same time?
No, I craved
that's not a Lyme
bacon.
symptom.
I was a crazy bacon person.
Yeah. That by the way, that's not a Lyme symptom. So just for the record, I want to make sure we don't confuse it.
My friends made fun of me. It was terrible. I'd get like plates of bacon.
Oh my gosh.
But so it took 6.5 years to diagnose me. And, I kept hearing, well, at your age, well, I had been an extreme skier. I was in extremely good shape. And I was working out and my health was going downhill. And I got to the point where I could barely walk up a flight of stairs. And, for somebody who's been an athlete at the level I was, that was just devastating. Plus I was a single mom of a young child. And I finally got the diagnosis 6.5 years after the fact. And he said, "When were you diagnosed with thyroid?" And I said, 2001. And he said, "Where were you the year before that?" And I went, "Oh my gosh, I had this bite on my leg for months." And then kind of the final blow of the news was when he said, did you have any children since then? And I said, I was pregnant when I got bit. And he said, well, it can be passed in utero. And my heart sunk. And,
Yeah.
the last thing any parent wants is for their child to be sick. However, it explained a lot of things. So, she was in kindergarten when we were diagnosed. She was only 5. So I started researching it because I didn't realize, what all it meant. I'd heard of it, but I didn't know anything about it. And I started doing research, and that's kind of my personality is I go down rabbit holes a lot.
But back then, what year was this roughly?
2006.
Okay, so we had the internet back then. Okay, so but is that where you did your research? Where did you go to do your research for credible information?
I typically read medical studies. I mean, I've been doing that since my 20s. I grew up in an abusive home, so my goal in college was to get out as fast as possible and be on my own. So I never had to ask for anything again. And so I started researching. I didn't have any money, and so I started researching health foods in my 20s because I thought, well, if I only have this much money, I need to put something good in my body. So I've really been a health food advocate my whole adult life. And so I was already into reading studies and reading books that doctors had written and all of that type of thing. It was just kind of the way that I think.
You were Maha before Maha.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I had studied the acidity and alkalinity factors in health and blood type diet. I'd studied quite a few things at that point, but that was all to support my athletic goals.
Right.
Because I became I was in the top 5 to 10% of skiers in the world.
Wow.
And I did that until I was 38 when I got pregnant. So,
Wow.
and then it was like, well, it matters if I crack my head open now, so maybe I better slow down.
Well, now, what kind of skiing were you doing? Was it slalom?
It was extreme skiing.
Slalom?
I started slalom skiing, and then I just had a wild hair. And, if I hadn't been abused, I don't know if I would have skied like I did. But I used to go up and take my anger out on the mountain. And so I just became this crazy person up there.
I did that with football. Yeah, I know what you mean. I can relate.
And, I mean, a lot of people that grow up like that become drug addicts or alcoholics or whatever. And I put it into being an athlete.
And where did you grow up? Where did you ski when you started? Montana, that's right. Yeah. Okay.
My hometown's Butte, Montana, and there's several Olympians from there also. Because what else do you do when it's, winter like it gets in Montana? There's not a whole lot to do. So, or at least there wasn't back then because they didn't have all the skidoos and everything. But it was a great journey, and did not plan on getting pregnant at 38, and but she's my only child, and she's a blessing, and I'm grateful every day for her.
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
She's a hero in herself because she got through this when she was a child. We have been Lyme free since 2009, so she was only in the 2nd grade when
so
that
3
happened.
years you got rid of it in 3 years. Within 3 years.
And I got a blood infection through my IV port. So that's actually what led me to the final clues of what to do. And that blood infection had a 3% survival rate. So I had several near-death experiences, and, failure wasn't an option. My daughter was 7 when I had the blood infection start, and I just kept trying things and researching, trying things and praying and praying and praying. And it was just a fluke. And all I can say is I had a lot of God moments. I was led to, products that helped. I was led to clues. Like one of the things that I discovered is that a lot of people resonated for tuberculosis. I was using an energetic machine for my daughter because I didn't want her on all the medications. She still had antibiotics, but not as many as I did. And I started testing other people who had Lyme disease, and I found patterns. And so when enough people had a certain thing in the pattern, and one of the things was tuberculosis, but it wasn't full-blown tuberculosis. Now there are studies out. They came out the first time in 2019. So 12 years later, the medical world kind of caught up to what I had figured out in 2007. But we did a round of, I did streptomycin. My daughter did a oral antibiotic. And the die-off was so great that I smelled like a rotting animal. It was disgusting. But it took away a lot of the infection.
And what was the first thing you did that you started noticing, wait a minute, this works?
Well, it's kind of hard to tell. I was doing about 12 IVs a week, and that's why I ended up getting an IV port, and about 300 pills a day. Like, it was insane.
Whoa.
But the streptomycin was the first really huge thing that gave me progress. And we just thought it came in through childhood vaccinations or something, because it was a mutation.
Yeah.
And in 2019, the NIH released a document saying that humans could contract tuberculosis from deer. And I've done further research. There's more about it out there now, and it's a bovine TB. So it is a mutation. And so it doesn't take off like tuberculosis normally would. And I believe it's a food source, but it's a mycobacterium. And if you don't get rid of all the mycobacteriums, you won't get well. So that was a huge piece of moving forward. And then biofilm was something new. And they had pulled, before they took the IV port out, we had to do emergency surgery. They took some blood out, and all this white stuff came into the blood tube. And everybody, there was 4 doctors there. Everybody's like, what is this? It looked like styrofoam. And they shipped it off to the lab, and it came back fibrin. And we didn't know what that meant at the time. But fast forward, I decided to put my daughter and me on a cleanse over Christmas vacation. And this was after I'd almost died. And both of us got really sick. And
what did the cleanse entail?
It was a greens first cleanse, and it's fruit and vegetables, basically. And my goal was to get the toxins from the medications out of us.
Right.
And so we both got really sick. And I went back to the doctor, and he said, your blood infection is back. And it freaked me out because I had turned gray. My hair fell out. My guts were falling out. Like I crossed over several times. So when he said that, it freaked me out. But what we figured out was that the enzymes in this cleanse were dissolving the biofilm. So we did a protocol of enzymes plus the antibiotics at the same time. And 6 weeks later, the Lyme was gone. And my daughter came to me at that point. She was in the 2nd grade, and she said, Mom, this is the best Monday of my life. And I said, why, honey? And she said, because I'm not tired.
Oh, man.
And that was like a miracle, you know?
So when people come to you right now, like a friend of ours had done recently, like, what do you tell them?
Well, a lot of them have been sick for so long that they've lost hope of getting well. So, the first is to discuss that. There's definitely an emotional component of Lyme disease. And, what I tell people is, like, if you take the word Lyme and divide it in half, it's lie and me. And so I ask every client I have, what lie are you telling yourself? And, sometimes it's, I don't deserve to be healthy, or I'm not good enough, or I don't deserve to be happy, or, there's always an emotional component that they have to work through. And we work on releasing that, because it's your emotions drive your health. If I hadn't been so determined, I don't know if I would have I would be here. I mean, the doctors told me that my physical condition going into this helped me stay alive.
Right.
But it was really my determination. And the first time I crossed over when I was dying, my brother, who had died when I was a baby, he was 2 weeks before his 4th birthday, he died. And he was there, and I said, "Oh, you're here to take me into the light." And he said, "No, I'm here to tell you it's not your time, you're going back." And I was like,
Wow.
"Oh,
Wow.
okay."
Wow.
And I didn't want to leave my daughter anyway, but he was
Right.
like, "Nope, we're stopping you right here. You're not going." And you know, so it was a rough journey, and it took a little longer for me to get rid of the blood infection. And then we had to repair the body because it does tremendous damage to your body. So, and everybody's a little different. What some of the things that I've discovered is that where the biofilm is growing, being formed, it determines the symptoms. So if it's around your nerves, it increases nerve pain. If it's in your
Right.
head, it's foggy thinking. If it's like I had neuropathy, I couldn't feel my feet up to my ankles, and it had been like that for about 5 years. And I remember the day when that went away, and I was up on Capitol Hill. We've been doing hill visits all day, and we were walking to dinner, and I said, "Oh gosh, my feet hurt." And then I realized what I had said, and I said, "Oh my God, my feet hurt." And I'm jumping for joy. Everybody's going, "What is wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I haven't felt my feet in like 5 years." Like it was a miracle that I had normal pain.
Wow.
And yeah, so it was like one by one, the symptoms went away.
So when a client comes to you, they've lost hope for the most part, right? How do you handle that at the beginning, like as far as to get them to sign up with you and trust this when they're really hopeless? Like, how do you, a lot of times people are hopeless, they don't want to invest any money into it because they're like, well, they've already been told and programmed that there's nothing I have to, I have to live with this.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I explain what I do. I'm very obviously not sick anymore. I have a great life, and it's just working through the fears. And a question I ask people quite often is, are you more committed to the disease than you are to your healing?
Ooh, good
And that
question.
really kind of hits them over the head, because especially with people who've been sick a long time, they end up where their entire support system is the Lyme groups and other people who have Lyme, because you lose your friends and family because I can't even tell you how many times I heard this, and it's very common, is, "Well, you look fine."
Yeah.
And
they think
you're
it's all in your
dying
head.
inside,
Yeah. And then when they get around those people that are left to be around, then you get these trauma bond situations where everybody kind of starts feeling sorry for themselves and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and it
Sometimes
spirals.
I go into these Lyme groups and say I have a solution, and I get attacked. Like it's crazy.
That's wild, man.
Like mean
That's
attacks.
so
Like,
crazy.
You're trying to rip people off or whatever, and it's like, no, I'm trying to
Right.
help people.
Yeah.
So I waited a few years because I wanted to make sure it was really gone, and I monitored my immune system and built my body back up, because you have to retrain your immune system. And then I started writing about it, and I released a book called Over My Dead Body in 2021.
Great title.
I've learned a ton since then, so I got to figure that out so I can get that out there. But I am writing a training program for doctors where they can buy a license to do what I do.
Oh, awesome. I
'Cause
love that idea.
a lot of the Lyme doctors, Lyme literate doctors, are that because they have Lyme themselves. So they started doing a lot of research about it, and then they became Lyme literate. However, most of them are still sick. So, our friend was like that. Her doctor has Lyme, and he's still sick, and so that's been fun working with him also.
Oh, that's so you got. Oh, so this is amazing how one little spark catalyzed can impact. Man, I love this. This is see, I made a lot of money in the mortgage real estate business, but never had fulfillment like this. This is amazing. So I had a question. Oh, what about parasites? There's another friend of mine. I don't know if you know her or not, Kim. And and I think she's called the Worm something, I forget, but she does parasite cleansing, or I don't know exactly what you call it, but do parasites have anything to do with it, and does that help?
Oh, for sure it helps. So in the first phase of what we do is we identify all of the foods that the people are allergic to, because many of them have a growing number of food allergies, and think because when your immune system gets weak, you anything that's harder to digest will become more reactive. So they end
And
up with all these
inflammation, right?
allergies. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then parasites is part of what I call opportunistic infections. So when your immune system is down, your virus load goes off the charts. Like when I did my viral panel, I had HHV6, cytomeglia, all 5 strains of Epstein-Barr in massive amounts. So I have a product that reduces the viral load. I get them on there right away. It also improves the immune system. So I do it right in the beginning. I do things that have major impact on people. So getting rid of the virus is one of the things, getting rid of the parasites. So, and Lyme has a parasitic form. So Lyme mutates. There's 46 different DNA strands that they've discovered with Lyme disease, and it mutates. So and this is why it's so hard to treat. If you're not treating whatever is active at the time, then you're just taking antibiotics for no good reason. It has to match whatever's active. So we scan people every 2 weeks, and it's a moving target. So you're like, oh, well, let's do this one or let's do that one. And when you're dissolving the biofilm, anything can come out. But we start with a liver cleanse, which is usually highly impactful, because you only have so many pathways to get rid of toxins, and they get overloaded with the neurotoxins from the Lyme because it releases neurotoxins on a consistent basis. So everything gets clogged up, and that toxicity makes people feel worse and worse and worse. So we clean everything up. We do different cleanses depending on what shows up on their scan. Parasitic cleanse is always part of it, and that impacts so many different things. I mean, cancer and Lyme and everything else. So you just don't need those in the body. And parasites form biofilm also. That's why they're hard to get rid of. So we dissolve that and get rid of as much as possible. With the food sources that we have anymore, that's an ongoing battle because they're introduced all the time.
What about the conspiracy theory of ticks were planted with Lyme disease and distributed through certain geographical locations? Have you heard that?
Oh, yeah.
And did you do any research on that part?
I have.
What are your thoughts from your research?
Well, Lyme disease was developed in Plum Island. Probably not a huge shock. Anthony Fauci was involved. And the first people diagnosed in the United States were around that laboratory. So,
well, there you go.
know,
There you go.
and before COVID, Lyme was the fastest growing epidemic in 6 continents.
So he got a pardon from the auto pen.
Yeah. I don't know if that's going to stick, but
Yeah,
we'll see.
I mean, it tells you a lot. If it does stick, it tells you a lot, because to me, it implicates the people that let that slide.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
my understanding is it wasn't written away where it covers everything. There's some things that are outside of that. That's my understanding. And so, I don't think that people and companies should be off the hook. I don't think that the people who make the vaccines should be off the hook for what they do. They're just making people sicker and sicker, and there's no accountability.
yeah,
And I've
and
watched
all these
that over the years.
all these conspiracy theories are becoming true conspiracies, and then what happens afterwards? Like, what's the accountability? Do we ever see accountability?
Man, I hope
And
so.
to me, a good leader is someone that holds people accountable. And it's not just in government, it's in business, it's in families and relationships. I want to be around somebody that holds me accountable.
Oh, I do
You
too.
know?
That's
Yeah.
how we grow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And so do you think we'll ever see accountability?
I know they're working out, I'm doing some work in there. So yeah, they are working on it. And it's such a mess to clean up that there's just a lot, I do
Well,
work with the Department of Education, and I was there testifying about 3 weeks ago. And I mean, there's just so much that is surfaced that they're like, which fire do we put out first? Because there's so many fires.
now you mentioned something about praying during this time too.
Mhm.
So how has your faith played a role in all this? Because I have a great relationship with God, and I talk to God, Jesus, all the time. And I just understand that that's the only truth, and the world is run by Satan, as far as I'm concerned. And so none of this surprises me. And when you see people not being held accountable, you find out all these people that said they're there for the good of the world or the good of the United States, good of the country. And then you find these things out and you're like, wow, man, like I put
Yeah.
these people on a pedestal to trust and for guidance. And then you find out this happens. And it's just like, man, it's like so like hopeless it can be, except for faith. So let me hear, what your faith has how this, it's impacted this.
Well, I've always had a strong faith, and I don't think I would be here if I didn't. Because it took me through what I went through as a child. Um, but my brother died when I was a baby, and I felt him my whole life. And he, when I was being abused, he was there, and I could feel him. I could feel God, um, and that helped me get through a lot of really horrible things. So I believe that we all have our own relationship with God, and we just have to open up and listen. A lot of people will pray and ask, and they spend their whole prayer time asking instead of listening. So
Yeah.
when you sit back to listen is when you get the really good stuff. Because what you're asking for may not be what God wants to give you
Yep.
or wants to give you at that time, because everything happens in God's time.
Yeah. I agree.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so I've never when I was going through treatment for the abuse, one of my counselors said, you've never gone through a phase where you were angry with God. And I said, well, why would I be angry with God? He got me through it. And I'll um Tony Robbins, and he does the Date with Destiny. Have you ever
Hmm.
done that?
No, I haven't done it, but I'm familiar. Yeah.
So that was by far the most impactful personal development course that I've ever done. And I was a plat partner, and I've done personal development since I was 22. So I've done quite a lot with quite a good number of people. So that the second time I did it, which was about a year and a half ago, he goes into a meditation and he says, go back to your first memory. And I was like, oh, another mom dad thing. And I've done a lot of healing on that area. So I thought, well, I'm just going to open up and see what comes in. And God came in. And he talked to me about how much it hurt him to allow me to be hurt. And he said, I had to let this happen so that you would have the experiences to fulfill your mission for being here.
Yeah. I love it.
And it was life changing.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always thought that way, but having that confirmation, because like I said, if I hadn't been abused, I wouldn't be the skier I was. If I hadn't been abused, I wouldn't have a business that I've done for 37 years of preventing student loan defaults and working with at-risk kids. And through my companies, I've worked with over 3 million kids. And I've helped write laws and federal regulations since 1988 about student loans and higher education. And, so almost 4 generations of college students in this country have been affected by my advocacy. And then he threw Lyme in my lap, and I was kind of like at the time going, really? Like, how many big things do you want me to deal with in this lifetime? But it was meant to be,
Well, I've studied a lot in personal development too, and one of the philosophies, and I've gone all over the board, but L. Ron Hubbard is a author that I read a lot, and he talks about adding more to your plate. When you feel overwhelmed, don't take away, add more.
Yeah.
And because we're built for so much more than we think we can handle, right? And the whole philosophy is to add more, and then what happen is that you'll focus on the things that matter, and all the things that don't matter will fall away because we only have so much attention to pay. And most people take away when they get overwhelmed, and the whole society talks about like just remove some things, take some things off, but most people don't know what to take off their plate. So how do you identify that? Well, you add more important things. And
that makes sense.
Yeah. And so that's what God did for you. Now, one thing you mentioned too is that the counselor or whatever said that you never got angry at God or asked him why or whatever. And I go through that to myself. Like I never have either. All the stuff, the brokenness that I've come from, I never asked God, like, why did you put me through that?
Yeah.
And I read the Bible all the time. And the Bible, the disciples, the disciples and many characters in the Bible or people in historical figures in the Bible have actually said, why, God, why did you forsake me? Why did you do this? And I read that and I'm like, how could you do that? Like, I would never do that to God, you know? So I've never done it either. I've always been thankful and thankful that I got through that,
And sometimes you don't have the answers for a while.
Yeah.
And that's hard for me because I have no patience. So I want everything to happen now. I want all my
And you're a
answers right now.
researcher. Yeah. Yeah.
And, but when, right before I wrote the book, and I'd been asking for years and years, when I would kind of communicate with my brother who had died. And I had asked since I was a little kid, like, why did you leave me? And right before I wrote the book, he answered. And he said, because I could protect you better from heaven than I could on earth.
Wow.
And the minute he said it, I knew it was true.
And you didn't even really know him in the physical world.
No.
Because you were a baby. Yeah. How awesome.
Yeah. So he's my little angel. And,
wow.
But that totally made sense. And just having that insight of that it was a gift and not something taken away.
Yeah.
It was another gift, but that showed like in the big plan that God comes up with, we don't always understand as humans why something happens. I finally got my answer. It took a long time to get it. But if I had gotten that answer when I was younger, I don't know if I would have understood what that meant.
Right. Timing is perfect in God's world, Yeah. So look, after this conversation, I want to bring you back if you're cool with it, because I want to talk more about the student loan situation, how you're involved with that, what you've done and what you're doing going forward. Let's schedule something very soon, and let's do another episode covering that if you're cool with it.
Yeah, that's cool. And just to give you a little flip on what's going on with that is that they just passed a big beautiful bill yesterday. It's got some language in there about the student loan repayments, and they are already forming the team. I've been nominated by about 20 different companies to be a negotiator, and I've done it many times. It's like torture, negotiating federal language, but when you're part of the solution, it changes the game. And I'm one of the leading experts in student loans in the country. So that negotiation starts at the end of June. So everything's happening really, really fast. And I am working with some people over there.
Well, it's got to get through the Senate, right?
Yeah.
And the changes have to then go back to the House again if they make any changes at all. So they have to both houses have to agree on the same exact contents, right? And so we'll see what.
They do a lot of work ahead of time, so when they go into conference, usually all of or a lot of the language has already been discussed, but we have some really great leaders in both the House, in the Republicans and Democratic side in education.
Yeah.
And they've worked together for many years. So they really, really do work on having collaborative language, and I like working with all of them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. All right. We're going to bring you back for that. Where can people go deeper with you or find out more about the Lyme situation, how you can help them?
My health and wellness website is championforlife.com. And we have a lot of information about Lyme disease on there. And we have a program called the Lyme Crusher, where I work with people. It's generally 4 to 6 months and it's over with. And these people are people who have been very sick I have a gal, it was 31 years that she had Lyme disease when she came to me. And, I cry every day because these people call me and they're like, one gal, I just had my first normal period in 30 years. I mean,
Wow.
to somebody who hasn't gone through this, they don't understand the impact of like each little baby step that you make is something that we celebrate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Marilyn, I got to say, I'm happy to know you. Thank you for coming into my life because you're helping me fulfill my mission. And I really appreciate that. And it's an honor and pleasure, privilege to be able to like push you out there further, faster. And I look forward to doing more with you. Let's bring you back to talk about the student loans, and we'll have a great conversation with that. And I appreciate you being here and your time today.
Oh, you bet. Thank you for the opportunity.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. And folks, thank you so much for joining us here on That One Podcast. It's your boy C-Roc, Lyn Hammer. Tell us what makes her that one. And I think you could tell from those stories what makes her that one. And you haven't even heard the other half. And we're going to bring her back to talk about that. So be looking out for that episode. Until next time, make sure you subscribe or follow, whatever that little button on your favorite podcast platform is. We're going to keep bringing you great episodes here with folks who are that one in their space. Until next time, it's your boy C-Roc signing off. Be that one.